Welcome to the BBTV network, coming from the UK studios of BizVision. I'm your host, Malcolm Gallagher. The COVID pandemic and its impact, such as remote or hybrid working, has highlighted all sorts of weaknesses amongst leaders of today. But by far the most worrying in recent UK research showed that 1 in 4 employees were ready to leave their present employer because of poor communication by their managers during lockdown. Quite simply, those employees are disengaged. There's plenty of other research from the USA and other parts of the world pointing to similar facts. Now, if leaders can't communicate effectively with their own people, can you imagine what they're like with customers, suppliers, stakeholders? But communication is not just about sending yet another faceless email. Let's go get the way forward by meeting the man with a global reputation on how to communicate. Now, we're off on a long Zoom journey to meet him, but it's well worth it as we go to Australia and say hello to international profiling and communication specialist, Alan Stevens. Hello, Alan.
Hello, and how are you doing, Malcolm? I'm really glad to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Before we started recording, we found out we might be all those thousands of miles away, but actually we're not really far away because I'm in Northumberland, just 15 miles north of Newcastle upon Tyne. You are where?
In Newcastle, just north of Sydney.
What a coincidence. What a coincidence. Although I have helped you understand how to say Newcastle, if you ever do come across to Georgia land, yeah?
I'll have to break the habit of Newcastle and bring it down to Newcastle.
Yeah, forget the BBC speak, Newcastle. Right. Alan, in my opening piece, I mentioned only one impact of poor communication. I'm sure we'll find out more on our solutions in our chat. Viewers and listeners, my conversation with Alan will be in 3 parts. In part 1, I want to ask Alan about the importance of those first few seconds on meeting someone. In part 2, I want to talk to him about the problems of people disengagement and how to make the communication changes that will boost productivity. And in part 3, I'm keen to ask him how you can boost your sales performance through applying profiling. Now, also remember, Alan has got a free gift for you after each part. So quickly grab pen and paper to write down the details, but I'll also put them on the lower part of the screen when we're editing later. This is going to be an extremely valuable interview for all today's leaders. But first, Alan, can you briefly tell us who is Alan Stevens and what in the first place drew you to your skill of reading people?
Well, Alan Stevens, as you said, I'm a profiling and communication specialist. I'm a grandfather of 6 grandkids and a father of 3 sons. And what got me into profiling and doing the work I'm doing is the fact that I was dreadful at reading people. I've been through 2 divorces. When my first wife left, I had 3 sons to raise on my own. And so in doing all of that, as I said, when I was first in employment, I was put in charge of a group of men who were all older than me. I was 23 and my second in charge was 38. And so I had to get them on side. In my mid-30s, I joined the surf club and became a surf lifesaver. And they talked me into being a patrol captain and then gave me everybody that nobody else wanted on the patrol. I turned that into the patrol of the year. And following that, they talked me into being the club captain. And now I'm in the same age as everybody else. But as they pointed out, I'm giving them orders on what to do. But I'd only been there 5 minutes as far as they were concerned because they'd been there since they were young children. And then in my late 30s, my first wife left and I had 3 boys to raise. So from the youngest in employment to the least experienced in the surf club to being right out of my depth raising 3 boys and running another business on my own at the same time. So I needed to learn to read people more effectively. And it's been a progression over the years to where I'm now recognised as one of the leading authorities on reading faces.
Excellent. Yeah. And 3 boys, we've got 2 girls and four grandchildren, but 3 boys could be a challenge. I totally believe that. Let's move into part 1. Alan, I totally agree with you when you say communications count. I suggest, though, that with all the remoteness and new dependence on digital communication, that many people have lost touch with the importance of those first few seconds on meeting someone. What's your thoughts here and how can it be corrected?
Well, the first, as you say, it's in the first few seconds, but really when we meet somebody in real life in the first instance, or even on Zoom, within about 100 milliseconds, we've decided whether we like them, whether we trust them. And this is part of our survival, the way that things have been wired. We need to be able to recognize somebody when we meet them. Are they somebody we know? Are they somebody who is good, somebody who's a friend, or somebody who is a foe, someone we shouldn't be around? And then being able to recognize their emotions, know whether we should be around them or move away from them very quickly. If you've got somebody that you shouldn't be around, they're not a friend, and they're looking angry, there's a good indication there to get away. This is one of the reasons why it had been hardwired into us to be able to read people. But now with the communications the way they are, if we're not on Zoom where we can't see the person and we can't see them face to face, we're limited in the connections that we have because we're on the phone. Could that be a way to connect, or via writing? In the world at the moment, the fastest growing industry has been IT, technology. The second fastest growing industry has been coaching. And the reason for that is with all the devices that we have, we are less connected to ourselves and less connected to each other than we've ever been before. And so with that, we need a lot more coaches along the way. And so we've lost that skill of being able to talk to somebody. So, but if I can see them, I've got that instant recognition of understanding who they are. And so that's quite important. When it comes to children, for instance, children have these skills. Everybody has them when they're young. But as we get older, they're like any skill. If we don't, been riding a push bike for ages and then we're not riding it, it takes a bit of practice to get back on there. If we're lifting weights and building our body and we don't do that, our muscles atrophy. And it's the same as we're growing up. We get involved in everything else. The skill that we had as young children, be able to read emotions and recognize faces, or recognize faces might still be there, but the recognizing the emotions, we lose that skill. And so as we're getting older, we don't use that. Now we're not seeing people. We've got all this emotional stuff going on with lockdowns and disconnections. And so it's becoming very difficult for people to maintain their communications and build their relationships.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting, because I was talking to a senior bank manager, and they were saying, well, we've caused as a bank a lot of the problem with disconnection. I said, well, what do you mean? He says, well, we have ATMs, the cash machines around there, and you can go and get your money out. But when you have to want a loan or a mortgage or anything like that, you don't have the ability then to talk to the bank. It's an entirely different situation, isn't it? Yeah. I think it's quite frightening, isn't it, that?
It is, because now the only way you can connect with the bank is pick the phone up and ring them. And you've got a voice, but there's no personal connection with the person.
Yeah.
When we're able to sit there and just be around their energy, being able to look at their faces, it makes us comfortable. We can pick up, if they're trying to be open and helping us, we can pick that up. In communications, they say that the words are worth 7%. Then we have the tone of voice being about 38% and the body language being 55%. So there's your 100% of communication. And by the way, it doesn't mean that the words aren't that important. It just means to have all of our communication, we need all three. They're equally important. But the information we gain is more from the actual body language and then the tone of voice. And lastly, the words themselves. Now on the phone, we can't see the body language. That transfers into the tone of voice. And the words go up to about 17%. We're only using 1/5 of the information when we're trying to make a connection on the phone. Whereas in real life, when we've got someone in front of us, we've got 100% of the being able to get all the reads from them, all the non-verbal, the things that, we feel that, this is safe to be around. This person understands us. If it's got a voice, it's difficult to connect with it.
It is. And I've done, in the last year, over 500 such interviews as you and I are doing. And I could tell you off air, by the way, not in front of everybody now, some of the stories, including the half-naked wife walking down the stairs behind the speaker. But that's for another day, isn't it, Alan? But really, I found some people have found it really difficult, CEOs in particular, really difficult to have to start to communicate, Let's go to Alan's first free gift, number 1. And I'm going to be putting the URL or the website address below on the screen, Alan, for everybody. But it's the download will be the 7 secrets to reading people. What will this give people?
It's a 6 emails that'll come out over 11 days, and it steps through how to, a bit of information, first of all, on how to read people. There's 7 secrets. The first 3, I'll give you that straight away. The first one is being able to understand your own personality, first of all, then being able to read the other person, know how you compare with them, and then knowing how to change the way that you like to speak to match the way that they need to be spoken to. So you can build instant rapport. So the 7 secrets about how do you build instant rapport? And that'll come out over 6 emails over 11 days and being able to work that out.
Superb, superb. And as you've seen, the URL was done across the screen there. And don't forget, you can always stop and rewind if you didn't write it down fast enough. Alan, before we move to part 2, let me just remind all of people watching of your URL, which is, now viewers, obviously you can see it on the screen behind me, but I'll spell it out for listeners. It's all the W's, Alan Stevens, and Stevens is Stevens, alanstevens.com.au. So let me just give you that again, listeners. It's all the W's, Alan Stevens with a V, alanstevens.com.au. Do go there and sign up for Alan's great newsletter, and also be amazed by the list of companies he's helped, such as Disney and Gillette, just to name but 2. Part 2. In my opening piece, I talked about the frightening figure of 1 in 4 employees being disengaged. Now, let's talk about the problems of such people disengagement and what changes can be made that will boost productivity. That disengaged and workplace conflicts are all hit productivity, don't they? And these days, we desperately need productivity to recover. So what's your thinking, and how do you help here?
Well, first of all, the 1 in 4 people who were disengaged during COVID, that was 1 in 4 who were happy to leave their employers. Now, in 2016, the Gallup research, which was across the Western world, England, America, Canada, Australia, etc., we had 48% of people were disengaged, and a further 18% were actively disengaged. So being disengaged, not wanting to be at work, but the actively disengaged were actually a cancer in the organisation. These were people who told everybody about how bad the organisation was that they worked for, and they whinged at work as well. In 2018, that total of 68% increased to 87% of people who were disengaged. So now we've got about close enough to 9 in 10 people who don't want to be at work. When COVID hit, we found that the biggest turnover of positions here in Australia was leadership roles. So those that were really nothing more than managers, because the problem was when you've got somebody at work and you're getting them to get their KPIs, you're able to watch them from the back of their, where they're sitting there and they're looking over their shoulder, watching them. The staff will only do what they have to do to get by. So they work out pretty quickly what it is that the manager is focused on. And the rest of the work they don't do. They just focus on that. And we found that a lot of managers started micromanaging more and more. So that caused the staff then to actually fine-tune it even further. And so when COVID hit and a lot of companies, people working at home, the end result was that they were turning around and the managers couldn't watch them anymore. There was no trust, there was no loyalty. And that's where the biggest issue comes in. The biggest catch cry we have today is working on your business and not working in your business. And that's what managers need to do, because if they're working in the business, then they're on the tools. If they're not working on the business, they can't grow the business. So to do that, though, you've got to have staff who are actively engaged in working in the business. And you only have that when you have loyalty. And this is where most people didn't understand. I put a post out on LinkedIn back in 2018. It was a picture of Richard Branson and the statement, take care of your employees and they will take care of your business. It's that simple. And so I put it up and I just put that comment up. Well, if that's the case, why is it 87% of people are disengaged in the workplace? It went berserk. It got shared about 13,000 times. It had about 45,000 interactions. And so that was in February. So in August, I put another post up, another picture of Richard Branson I'd seen floating around on the internet with the statement next to it again attributed to him being, customers don't come first, employees come first, and then it had the rest of that statement again. And I put that one up and I said, yes, it is that simple. And there's some tips on how to do it. The number of people who are rubbishing their employers and employers who are whinging and complaining about their staff, how they give them everything. They pay their loans, they look after them. And as they said, they still dumped on them from a great height. And I went, well, that's not looking after your staff.
No.
If you think about your personal relationship with your partner, you know you're loved when you feel that you contribute, that you have a place that, that you're valued. Mm. It's no different with your employees. The only difference is hopefully there's no sex going on. Right. The rest of it, though, is, yes, you feel valued, that you contribute, that, you're a value to the organisation. And somebody who feels that way, they will work their tail off in the business, which means the manager then can go and work, and the business owner can go and work on the business. Mm-hmm. And in fact, the old description of a business, someone who was a business owner, was not somebody who just started their own business, because they were usually the lowest paid employee. They were doing everything. The first person there, the last person to leave. But the definition of a business owner was somebody who would employ people that he or she employ people that could do the work that he or she couldn't do or didn't want to do. And so the business owner could go on holidays, and the company would not only survive in their absence, it would thrive in their absence. Mm. That was when you were a business owner who could work on your business. And that's the only time you were a business owner in the old description. Yeah. We've got all these people who are trying to be managers and managing their staff and laying down the law and forcing their staff to do what they want them to do, without realising that this is a partnership. If the staff feel that they contribute and they are invested in the business will look after itself. Mm. And you can then focus on what you need to do to grow the business.
Yeah. I sometimes concern, though, that people are starting to understand that, but it's not genuine, their concern for their employees. I think they pay lip service a lot to it. Do you feel that might be happening?
Very much so. Well, one of the biggest catch cries today is that people only buy from people that they know, like, and trust. Yeah. So the new the phrase is know, like, and trust. But when they say it, it's almost like speed talking. It's know, like, and trust. There's no understanding. You get to know somebody, takes a little bit of time. Then to trust them, there's a little bit more time involved. But then to be able to, to have that know, like, trust, it's going to take a period of time. How fast you can actually speed that up when you know how to read the people and you know how to talk to them in the way that they need to be spoken to. Hence that first gift I gave you, the 7 secrets. How do I know how to talk to the person in a way that I build stronger rapport, that therefore I have a better relationship and therefore better communication with them?
Yeah, I think that word trust is so important these days, and leaders have struggled recently to be conscious leaders, haven't they? Because they have struggled to be able to come away from firing off umpteen emails and wrapping out orders to the PA. They've actually got to be on screen and start to be human, and that's not easy, is it?
When you go from you're talking about trust, what they're not realizing is that trust is a two-way street. Mm-hmm. For them to trust you, you have to trust them. And the trouble is, most of the training that they're getting in, it's called leadership training, is really just management training. It's how to work your resources. Now, all the things that you have at work, all your tools and everything else, they're your resources, but your assets are your people. Yes. Nobody goes out and leaves their assets sitting on the shelf. They use it and let it grow and multiply and everything else. Do the same with your staff and just recognise they are your assets, not your resources.
And now it's time for free gift number 2, Alan. You've told me it's your free course, How to Persuade and Influence Behaviours of Others, coming across on the screen below now. So what is this course then, Alan?
Well, it gives an overview of how the profiling actually works. At the same time, it gives a number of traits that you can then go out and test for yourself. But it also looks at where do the eyes move when somebody's sourcing information. Because we look in a certain direction to visualize, to remember what something sounds like or what it would sound like. So when you're talking to somebody, their eyes will move around. And this will show you what's actually going on when their eyes are moving. The old saying that a salesperson, you can't trust a salesperson if their eyes are moving, it's the opposite. If they're not moving, when they're saying to you, oh, let me think about that, then their eyes need to move. Well, this will actually teach you where their eyes are moving and therefore be able to work out whether they're telling you, or beginning of telling, whether they're telling you the truth or not.
Wow, I like that one. Yes, yeah. And better not let my wife get a hold of that one, though. My final part 3. I've saved your skill in profiling to the last, but wow, is it such a skill? But let's make this a practical lesson for viewers and listeners. How can they use profiling to boost sales performance? Now, pen and paper ready, everyone. And don't forget, there's a third gift at the end of this part. Over to you, Alan.
Excellent. Well, first of all, let me explain to you how the profiling works. The facial features tell me your personality, so how you like to think and process information. And if you think about it, if you lift weights, you're going to build muscles in your body. At the same time, everything we feel inside, we express outwardly. So this is why the micro expressions and the body language work. You put those together. And if I might use you as an example, those little vertical lines that you've got between your eyebrows there, they come from things needing to be exact. When you're focusing on things, you're going to tighten the muscles around your eyebrows there, and you're going to cause those ridges and crevices, which tell me that you're somebody who needs detail. You need to be, if I present anything to you, it better be exactly right. I can also see in your face that you're analytical. You analyze things before you make a decision. But once you've made your decision, just give me the best way to do it and get out of the way and let me get it done. So if I know that, and I come in and I go to speak to you and I just give you a brief overview, you're going to be wondering where the rest of the information is. If I'm somebody who just wants to lay it all out on the table, you're more likely going to stop me all the way through wanting more information. So I can pre-frame the sale or the conversation and say, look, Malcolm, I know that there's going to be a lot of questions you're going to have in here, but if you don't mind, because I need to get it out on the table, what I want to do is just give you the overview, and then we'll go back and you can ask all the questions you like, and we'll spend all day answering those questions if you like. And if you say fine, and I start to give the overview, and then you stop me part way through and want to know more about that, I can come back to you and say, look, I wanted to make sure I don't forget anything. And that's important to me. It's got to be important to you as well. And you say yes, and I go, okay. And I go back to giving the overview, and then we can go back and answer it all. So I can control the conversation, but talk to you in the way that you need to be spoken to. But I guarantee that there are times when you've been talking to people and everything's been going fine, and then they've either switched off or they've been trying to, get you to answer, actually tried to finish your sentences for you. They've been rushing you to get to the end. That's because being analytical, you need to give them more information because you need to get more information yourself. And therefore, in their case, that's too much information. So you can actually sell the process. You can actually go through the front door, you've done the sale, and you talk yourself out the back door. And so if you know that, you know how much information to give them. At the same time, I can tell whether you're focused on the service or whether you're focused on the value. So if I'm selling a car, for instance, I know whether to sell it on all the bits and pieces and how great it's going to look and how you're going to feel and what other people are going to think about it. Or I can be focused on, the value of this vehicle is really spot on. It's also the running costs are the cheapest on the road. And those bits and pieces that your partner wants to put on the vehicle, they'll look great for them and everything else. But for you, what it means is, that spoiler on the back of the car will put more pressure on the aerodynamics, will put more pressure on the tyres, which gives you better control on the road, nicer drive, but it'll save on tyre. You'll mean that you'll get better fuel economy. So I'll be talking value to that person, whereas a partner, I'll be talking about the service. Yeah. So talking the other person's language. This is always going to get you to the sale faster. But you start the conversation, I can ask questions and using the body language and expressions as a response. I know whether I'm finding out what you need, what you want behind that, but beyond that, why do you want what you want? You want more sales? I need more sales. Okay, why do you need more sales? This case could be, well, I want to be able to make more sales in a shorter period of time. Well, what's the reason for that? We get more into the emotions behind the want, and we find out that, okay, you want to spend more time at home. You want to be there when the kids go to school, and you want to be there when they come home. So you want to reduce the number of hours. So it's not that you want more sales, you just want to get the sales faster. So if I understand all of that, and I've got the body language and the expressions giving me all the feedback and telling me, yes, I've read you right, I'm talking to you the right way. I've also hit the hot buttons that you have. And now I'm not actually doing a sale. What I'm doing is meeting your needs. I don't sell to people, but by God, they actually buy a lot from me simply because I find their needs present in a way in which they go, I've got to have that. So I've actually met their needs. I haven't actually been trying to sell a product or a service. That's the difference in the sales. And this is how you can increase your sales quite dramatically. By talking to their traits, you reduce the time frame of going through that sale. It actually takes the time that they need, not the time that you're trying to set it in. You also then have their loyalty. If it's the traits will tell you if this particular item is something that they're going to consume immediately, great. Alternately, if it's a product that they're going to go away, think about, and they've got a cooling off period, I want to know, they might go into the sale quickly, but if their traits are also telling me this is somebody who's impulsive, I know when they get home, somebody's going to talk them out of that sale and tomorrow they're going to cancel it. So I can then talk to them in a way to make sure that I fully anchor that. They understand it. So when they're talking to somebody at home, they can answer the other person's questions and therefore keep with the sale.
Yeah.
All of this information, as they say, the eyes are the windows to the soul. Your facial features are the windows to your mind. And if your facial features are a roadmap of how you like to think and process, not your character, but your personality. And if I talk to your personality, I get that know, like, and trust very quickly. I've got the rapport. I'm able to understand where you are. I'm able to pick up all the emotions and everything else. So I know if I'm hitting the mark. I also know if there's something else that's got your mind separate from our conversation. It might be some trauma that's going on in the family, some stress. Well, I can talk to you in a way in which we can solve that as well, and then go back to the sale. And the more I do that, the more you're going to trust me, and the more I'm going to have loyalty from you in the future, and the more likelihood you're going to go out and tell all your friends what the great process of working with me, and they should work with me as well.
Brilliant. I told you, viewers and listeners, this was going to be an extremely valuable interview. Now, the third and final free gift from Alan is a free chapter from his book, Game Changers. Again, you'll see the URL coming across the screen. What's the Game Changers about then, Alan?
Well, I was fortunate enough to have some very good associates around me. There were seven of us in total. And we wrote the Game Changer, which was talking about how we went through to doing what we're doing today. So you're not just getting my experience, you're also getting 6 other authors' experience as well from different industries and the way in which they built their businesses. So you get understanding of how the facial features, the micro expressions, how I built my business as a profiler, but also how these other people have put systems and other things into their business to be effective as well. So you're getting the wealth of 6 different people in getting some ideas on how to apply those into your business.
Excellent. And of course, you can download that free chapter with the URL. This BVTV channel is called Today's Leader, not yesterday's leader, who's prepared to simply shuffle forward or even stand still. Today's leader is keen to ensure in this new and altered world that the past, where necessary, is left behind. But that is likely to demand change. Making the right change then becomes vital. I trust you feel, like me, that Alan Stevens has inspiringly given you the direction you need to take. Thanks, Alan, for a great interview.
It's been my absolute pleasure. I hope your people got a lot out of it.